I wanted to bring Liz Wheeler on because I think she's the best Catholic I know, next to my mother-in-law. And Liz, I don't want to criticize the Pope because at least he's not Francis, who I didn't have a problem criticizing because I didn't think he was actually Catholic. Is this where do you stand with this Pope? Is there hope here? Is this just a blip? What are you thinking?
Good question. I think Catholics all over the world are asking themselves that same question. So I would say let's start with the good news first. The Catholic Church is the Davidic kingdom, and it will endure regardless of infiltrators. So it's not a political organization. It's a spiritual one. The second piece of hope is that young men entering the priesthood today are incredibly based. So the next generation is not going to be dealing with the boomer liberal priests that we have to deal with right now. That's kind of the good news. It is demoralizing, I think, as a Catholic to see the Pope engaging in this climate. I mean, he calls it climate justice. What does that mean? And I'm not saying that rhetorically. Climate justice is a very thin mask over communist political aspirations. So it feels scandalous for a Pope to be cavorting with these people. I mean, he blessed that water. I throw that holy water on these communists. See how many demons hiss out of them. I mean, this is the communist ideology that he's playing around with. And I agree with Matt Walsh. I don't like criticizing the Pope as a Catholic because, and this, I'll be perfectly blunt with you, Glenn, because whenever I, as a Catholic, criticize the Pope, my evangelical friends and Protestant brethren conflate my criticism of the Pope with criticism of the Catholic doctrine. And that's one of the things that sets Catholicism apart is the Pope is the leader of the church. And as such, we, of course, hope that he accurately represents the doctrine, but he does not write or dictate the doctrine. He can say things as the Pope that contradict Catholic doctrine because what he says is not infallible. We as Catholics are not required to take everything he says as, no pun intended, gospel. And it's confusing sometimes because that's not how a lot of Protestant and evangelical churches are, but it's worth noting because in this case, I mean, to me, and I'm not trying to stand here and define what sins have been committed or anything like that, far be it from me, but it seems to me that when you stand quite literally next to communists and take part in their rituals, that it's going to be very confusing. It is the near occasion of sin at best because people who are not as informed about what quote unquote climate justice actually is might conflate it for our true calling as Christians, which is to be good stewards of the creation that God gave us. That's true. We are called to do that as Christians. But when you conflate that with climate justice, which is anti-humanity, anti-God, that can be very confusing for people who aren't as politically entrenched and reading these documents of the UN climate conference like you and I and a lot of the people who are listening today do. So I find it to be disappointing like that. I actually think I texted this to a friend earlier. I think he's good on many theological things. He has some liturgical tendencies that are refreshing after Francis. He seems to be extending the olive branch to a lot of traditional Catholics with the Latin Mass and that kind of thing. And that's good. But I texted a friend this morning. I said he should listen to his brother more on politics. His brother, I think, has a very bombastic account down in Florida posting some, what I consider to be funny. Some people might consider to be bombastic things about Hillary Clinton. And wow. I mean, I don't love his politics. So I think there's hope, but there's also a little disappointment too.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we all go through this with all of our churches, because I think all of our churches have let us down. I really do. I mean, my church, I don't happen to agree with, the stance on illegal aliens. I don't understand that stance. I understand compassion and everything else, but follow the law is also part of it. I thought, and we all have things that make us uncomfortable in all of our churches, and we just I hope and pray that we'll start to see our churches find the leadership that will stand up and be very, very clear on universal principles. 25, 30 years ago, my faith came out with the Proclamation of the Family. And 30 years ago, it seemed insane. And it was like, gender is specific and ordained by God. Man, woman, children, that's the family proclamation. And it went deep into it. And that seemed nuts at the time. But that's the kind of stuff we need from all of our churches right now. What are the eternal truths that we all need to stand for?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's actually one of the reasons why not just why I'm Catholic, but why I'm excited to be Catholic. Because while, yes, it can be demoralizing when a leader who is a de facto representative of your faith speaks politics either wrongly, in an ill-informed way, or even in what I consider to be immorally, at the same time, because he doesn't change the doctrine. I mean, look at theology of the body, Pope John Paul II. Look at the Catechism of the Catholic Church defining communism as coming from Satan. I mean, these are truths that aren't changed, and that the Catholic Church is unwavering in not just her belief, but her teaching. And if you put aside really the sin and the brokenness of the people who lead the church, because we're all sinful and we're all broken, and you look at just the truth of the gospel, whether this is we in the Catholic Church call this the Word. It is both the Bible and tradition and the living Word, Jesus Christ himself. If you look at this deposit of faith, it is eternal. It is unchanging. And that brings hope beyond just politics and beyond just the leadership of a specific organization. That brings eternal hope. And that's why, no matter who is currently at the helm of the administration of the church, I will always be Catholic.
How are you feeling about the way Christians are dealing with each other right now? I think we're in a new place, and a really good place. Do you feel that?
Yeah, there's a spiritual revival that's happening. I mean, it accelerated after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, because you and I have talked about this often, Glenn. When someone is confronted with evil, as we all have been, because of the politics of the recent decades, it brings to the forefront of your mind in a very new and very sometimes jarring way that, well, if there's evil, then there must also be good. And when you search for that good, it leads you toward God. And this has been a slow roll that's been happening over the course of the last decade. And there's been some accelerating events. There were the Black Lives Matter riots. There was the COVID vaccine mandates. There was, of course, the very recent murder of our friend Charlie. There have been these events where people are like, wow, that, when you're told that your white child is a racist just because they have white skin, and that your black child is oppressed just because they have black skin, like, that's not just stupid policy. That's not just ill-informed leaders. That's evil. And so people have been searching, and they are rightfully, and I mean, it brings me great joy finding God in the midst of this political evil, because we would like, I think, to believe that politics and religion are separate, that that they're two entirely different entities. But the truth of the matter is they're not. Our society is intended to help human flourishing, but human flourishing is not just the liberty to do whatever you want. It's not just license. It's the opportunity, the liberty to pursue virtue, which is your opportunity to choose Christ. So you can't really separate the two. And it's become very clear that the other side doesn't separate their religion from their politics. We are, of course, engaged in spiritual warfare, not just left versus right political bickering here. And it has been in the midst of the suffering that we have all endured in our country over the past decade. It is also a good and humbling reminder that God brings so much good out of evil, because you see this incredible awakening that's happening in people's hearts as they face what could turn them to the bad side, but instead is causing them to turn towards God.
Liz, thank you for stopping by the show today. I appreciate it. Just love you. Stay safe.
Thanks, Glenn. Appreciate it.
You bet. You bet. Bye-bye.